Yo, what's going on, people? I hope you're well and in good health. It has been a while actually now. I think this is the first podcast I've done this year. So as you can see a full library of podcasts that we've done basically in the last several years. I think we've been going now since 2018, but I haven't really had the chance to do as many podcasts as I'd hope and as regularly as possible. It's just I've been too busy doing all sorts of stuff, which I will be telling you lot about, so you can find out a little bit more about that. Right. Well, anyway, the most important thing is that we create content that's going to help you in terms of your vision, your development, and enhancing your journey. And that's basically what it's all about building yourself as a useful person in society that can do something that can benefit others as well as yourself. Right now, as you know pretty well much know, we've had several years of absolute turmoil, and currently the economic markets, the financial markets around the globe are in turmoil and meltdown in certain places. I mean, if you look at the currency, now, we have paper currency around the world, and some of you may or may not know, it doesn't actually hold any intrinsic value, meaning it's just paper. So in the past, you'd have things, backed, money might be backed by gold, for example. Now that was something tangible that you could touch and trade and so on. But the fiat currency, as they call it, the paper money, nowadays we here in the UK have polymer plastic notes, even that's changed. That money in itself has no intrinsic value. So they have a process where they print money. So a lot of these entities around the world will print money, and then they have loads of money in the market. They call it quantitative easing. And as you know, or you may not know, when that money comes into the market, it can then help devalue things and increase inflation levels. So right now in the UK, it's over 2 trillion in debt, in terms of government debt, that the country has, right? And inflation has reached 10% once again here, and it's pretty much the highest rates it's been in like 40 years, as such, so like 4 decades, going all the way back to the early 80s. So you can see how this is affecting people, families, individuals, and so on. Because now we have something that they call, or term, the cost of living crisis, right? So the cost of living crisis is pretty much the increase in prices of things like food, so your basic foods like bread, milk, all that kind of stuff. The prices have gone up. You'll notice that in the supermarket. So when you go for your local shop, you'll see that the food prices have increased drastically compared to the last months and few years. So you can see that a noticeable difference, and that is mainly due to the inflation levels. And right now, there's a lot of predictions for recessions and stagflation and all these different things. So the economy looks bleak. Now, I don't know about you, but when I was younger, so I grew up in the UK, when we went to school, we kind of missed out on something called financial education, right? We never were really taught about financial education, how to basically manage money, right? What is money? I mean, do you know what fractional reserve banking is? All these kind of terms, how to buy a house, how to sell a house, how to set up a company, what is money, what's the value of money, how do you save money, how to spend money effectively, how to budget. All these kind of things are life skills that now, on retrospect, as somebody who's a lot older and left high school more than 2 decades ago now, I can see that definitely, if we'd had that kind of financial education or knowledge kind of sharing at that time, if we'd been informed about those type of things, then I could definitely say for sure that we would have been better placed to make more sensible financial decisions, right? Um, I mean, I was a little bit lucky because we did have something at the final year of high school, which was called Young Enterprise, right? So I was there. There was about 4 or 5 other people, and between us, we set up like a mini kind of little company, and then actually we decided to sell candles. So I was the chairperson of the company, so to speak, or the leader, and we chose to sell candles. So we actually we had some money that was given to us, so we basically went to a local organization, and we hired candle making equipment. So then we made the candles, and then we sold them to people in school, teachers, students, pupils, and so on. So we had a bit of a process where we had like what we would describe as nowadays board meetings, for example. We had uh, a purchasing process, a manufacturing process, a sales process, a marketing process. Obviously, so many years later, now that I've got the knowledge that I have now around business and entrepreneurship, I know all these things. But obviously, at that time, when you're 16 years old, you don't know these things. And there was only 5 of us that actually did that in the whole year, and there must have been, a few hundred people in that year at that time. So actually, I did pass because it was actually a NVQ level 2. So you got the equivalent of 2 GCSEs, which is national qualification at level 2, vocational qualification. In case you know a little bit about the UK education system, and I guess that experience. I mean, I didn't use it very much until much later in life, but that experience probably did help me a little bit for sure. But what I'm referring to more is the financial education, actually having modules, having weekly sessions for at least 12 months or 6 months or whatever it might be, where people can actually learn about these things when they're younger. Because then when they get to 16, 18, 20, 25, they might go on to live their own lives. So they might leave home. They might go and purchase or rent a house somewhere, or a flat or an apartment. They might get a job. So they need to be aware of how these things work. Some people will get mortgages, buy houses, get into debt. Might be bad debt, you don't know, or even good debt, or whatever it is. But they might not understand how to save, how to budget, how to increase revenue, even, through entrepreneurship, through side hustles, through business creation. Now, definitely looking back, I would say that, um, schools, education authorities should definitely consider this right now. And even if they can't get modules going in their schools, at least start bringing in more speakers, entrepreneurs, people from the business world, right? Because at the end of the day, when they leave school or college or university, if they're not going to the entrepreneurship field and setting up their own businesses, startups, then they're going to have to go and work for somebody else, right? So business owners, entrepreneurs, what do? They set up companies. So we sometimes refer to these as SMEs, which is small medium enterprises, right? So these smaller companies, they'll employ the bulk of the workforce in this country, right? They form the backbone of the ones who pay corporation tax and so on, SMEs. Now, these entrepreneurs, they take the risk, they set up the companies, they then create the jobs, they sell a product or service, generate revenue, create profit, and they pay people's wages, right? So at the end of the day, you're either going to be working for somebody, or you're going to be working for yourself, either self-employed, a business owner, or whatnot, or working as an employee. So at the baseline level, there should be a lot more emphasis on entrepreneurship, understanding entrepreneurship, bringing in guest speakers, people from the business community, educational institutions, academic institutions need to spend time and work with uh, these different entities in the business space so that they can actually start to educate people and start to showcase that knowledge and let people know that there are other opportunities out there for one to pursue. Okay, so that's pretty simple in terms of my thinking, that the education systems in today's world need to adapt, because a lot of the education system, for example here where we are in the UK, the British system, a lot of it stems back to Victorian times. Even some of the kind of setups that we have in the workspace as well, because in those days they needed workers who could work particular shifts, and they had all these coal mines, and they had these factories and mills and so on. That's why they had a lot of migration post World War Two, the Windrush generation, and those that came from the Indian subcontinent to the UK, particularly in the 50s, 60s, 70s. However, obviously there were plenty of migrants that had been coming to the UK, the Britannia for centuries, for hundreds of years, all the way, even thousands of years, all the way back to the Roman period, Vikings, Germanic tribes, and so on. So that's all that's been happening throughout history, right? But the main thing is that there is something that's created that will allow the knowledge transfer to get to those young people, because they're the future of tomorrow, okay? And we need to make sure that we have a society where less people are, entrapped and then living beyond their means. There's a particular old saying, you might know, it's called keeping up with the Joneses, if you know what I mean, right? So we want to make sure that less people are kind of trapped with debt, and they manage their money effectively. So the money management skills and techniques need to be at hand, so that they can actually, have a more better life, a more better quality of life. And I know people like myself, I'm sure the people out there as well, who have, lived in this part of the world, or the Western world, could have definitely benefited. I mean, I didn't know a lot of the things that I know today, in terms of managing money, spending according to your budget, having a budget for the start, these simple things. Nowadays, I know there's a lot of people who use effective money management techniques. So one of those things might be simply to get on Microsoft Excel, create a spreadsheet, and then just do a income, expenditure kind of forecast or actual spend. So simply jot down on the spreadsheet what you spend on a daily, weekly, and then monthly basis, right? So for example, what do you pay for bills, right? What exactly do you pay for bills? What do you pay for other expenses? Like for example, food shopping, maybe car payments, maybe mortgage if you've got one, or whatever the expenses that you might have. So then you can look at what income you're getting. So if you've got a job, or if you've got multiple jobs, which many people do these days. I mean, for example, nowadays a lot of people order from home, so they use apps on their phones or as it is, and they just order out, so take out, so burgers, pizzas, whatever it might be. And a lot of people as a side hustle are delivery drivers, so they'll basically sign up to different platforms like Deliveroo, Uber Eats here in the UK, and you'll find in different places around the world they have similar kinds of companies and apps that people can access. And then they'll simply basically get these side hustle type jobs or part-time jobs and deliver food in the evenings as on top of their normal kind of daily day job that they might have. So people are making ends meet doing those type of jobs, as well as other kind of jobs out there just to survive in today's world where living expenses have shot through the roof, and just living is tough. It's not easy. It's tough, very tough. So yeah, so as I was saying, look at the spreadsheet, use it as a means of kind of mapping your expenditure, income and expenditure. And what you can do is, for example, once you've got some data, so maybe 6, 12 months, you can look back and then see what you've spent your money, where you've spent it, and then you can work out what you could cut out if you want to cut out certain things that you don't need. A lot of people have streaming services that they pay £10, £6, £5, or something that they pay a regular monthly fee, some sort of service that they're using, and then, or even it's £5, I might forget about it, right? And then a lot of people have realized that they're spending that type of money on streaming services, so they've actually then turned around and started to cut them out. Particularly now, as we've got a recession looming, and as some people say, a recession already in place, right? So people are looking at different ways to cut down expenditure and the money that they're spending on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, right? And then even having that kind of spreadsheet where you've got those figures, you can, you're better able to forecast what your expenditure is going to be. Because right now you've got, for example, your bills or your home bills, right? Energy bills. We do have a energy crisis as well. Yet another financial crisis around energy. So I'm talking about gas and electric. So here the price cap will be lifted next year in springtime, which means average bills or standard type bills will probably reach over £4,000 or something like that. It's being forecasted or estimated, right? And obviously, depending on how much energy you use, is going to vary between different households, number of people living there, and the number of units that you use. But generally speaking, £4,000. I mean, that's like good few 100% increase from the last year or two. So obviously, we've got wars happening around the world. We've got a shortage of gas and energy supplies right now. We've got winter coming up as it is. So all these things come together and they play a part. They play a part which basically then will affect you, affect me, affect everybody. Now, that does sound grim, and you've probably already heard it everywhere in the news, in social media, when you're scrolling through different posts. This, a lot of this you'll be seeing it. Or you might be somebody who's not really paying much attention to this, and very shortly you're going to get a nasty surprise when you start seeing how prices of everything is further increasing, and inflation is eroding the value of your money. I spoke about earlier in the podcast, the Road to Empire podcast, about inflation and how it affects fiat currency and paper money. So, if you've got £1,000 or £100,000 in your bank this year, and you just, left it there to sit, that 10% inflation rate next year would have eroded that value. You understand? So the value of your paper money inside the bank is going down all the time. So what you've got to do is, I would say, keep some sort of emergency. That's a suggestion. It's not particularly financial advice, but what I would say is, I personally, I have an emergency fund, for example, basic, so you can pay your bills and that kind of stuff. But start looking at assets. One thing that a lot of people are doing out there, and a lot of the gurus talk about as well, is assets. So you can purchase assets that will increase in value over time, or they might bring you in some sort of recurring income, or sometimes people refer to it as passive income. I'm not particularly sure if there is anything where it's truly and wholly passive, but I mean the kind of standard thing that comes to mind is real estate, where, for example, someone purchases a property, an apartment, whatever it might be, a condo, whatever it might be. So someone purchases some sort of real estate, and then they bring it back onto the market for rent, or they might basically do it up and sell it on, what they call a flip in the property scene. But yeah, so when you buy a property, you put it on rent, someone's paying that rent, So if you bought it on mortgage, they're paying that mortgage off. Or if you've got the cash and you bought it in cash, then you're making that particular income on a monthly basis, whatever it might be. And then as you get more properties, obviously that income will increase. And if you've got an estate agent or a management company that's dealing with the property for you, then you're not involved in the day-to-day kind of thing, where you would be, for example, if you were running a food establishment, possibly, unless you're a silent partner, of course, or whatever it might be. So you can see there that, investing your money into some sort of assets which will either increase in value or create more revenue stream is going to be the way forward. So sometimes, people might buy a Rolex Daytona, for example. Nowadays, I think they're coming in around about 20 grand or whatever it is. There's people that have bought those type of watches going back to the 70s. At those times, it's roughly like £800. And some of those watches have sold for thousands and thousands. So those type of watches, obviously you do your due diligence and your research, can increase in value. So, you need to have some sort of basic knowledge and then increase your knowledge about those particular industries. For example, watches, if you were going to go and, have a look at that in terms of investment potential. But yeah, people buy stocks, S&P 500, for example, other stocks in companies, and so on. And then obviously real estate, and there's, other different potential avenues as well. So physical, tangible metals such as gold. Obviously, gold is one of the oldest, most ancient forms of wealth. People have used gold time memorial, like, over the centuries, thousands of years. They've used it as a means of exchange, as a means of currency. So all these emperors and ancient rulers would use gold in the marketplace, for example, alongside bartering and so on. So obviously gold coins, silver coins, that kind of stuff. So you could spend some of your money, if you have money that you've saved up, into gold. So gold assets would be a good potential asset to diversify your money. But the main idea of this kind of podcast today is to give you a sense of the financial doom that's impending, that may occur. We don't know how serious it's going to be, because all the markets and all these gurus and whatnot, and financial institutions and think tanks, lots of forecasts and predictions around the element of some sort of crash happening, recession, a correction, because it's been the last global recession was back in 2008. So, there's been at least 16 years gone by. So at some stage, there's probably going to be a correction, potentially next year, the year after, maybe the year after that. We don't really know exactly. Nobody knows. Nobody can finite actually predict the exact date or whatever it might be. But this is cyclical economies and general basics in terms of economics. So at some stage it will happen. But what I would say is start to prepare. Start to think about how you can prepare, what you can do to challenge this kind of situation, how you could figure out better ways to build your reserves, then maybe, in order to invest in assets that are going to generate revenue or increase in value. And then, slowly you can actually start to move towards some sort of financial stability. Now, financial stability, a lot of people haven't got it. You have to move to some sort of financial stability, especially in today's world, because you are in danger, right? We are all in danger, right? The actual, financial systems could be wiped out. The value of money, look what's happened in places like Turkey, in Lebanon, right? The value of their currency has dropped rapidly in the last year or so. There's people who can't even get their own money in banks, for example, in Lebanon. So you can see that there is some sort of major crisis looming in terms of the financial side of things. So start to educate yourself, right? Okay, maybe you weren't educated in the standard status quo in terms of the particular educational system that you grew up in, but you do have an opportunity to self-educate, right? I've self-educated, right? Because I didn't know a lot of the things that I know today, right now, and it's been a journey of more than a decade of learning, reading, buying courses, buying books, you know, buying tools, mentorship, paying for all these different things to learn, learning from people that already made or have been, made people, so that I could shorten my journey. Essentially, that's the whole point of trying to, purchase knowledge or mentorship and so on. I used to talk. I used to joke with a friend of mine. Like, yeah, man, we're gonna make $100,000 in a year. We're gonna make $100,000 in a year, and that's what I used to say, kind of thing, because that was my kind of goal. One thing is mindset. You've got to get your mindset, because there's an old saying that I have, which is the greatest battle you will face is a battle within. So you've got to get your mindset right so that you actually can focus on building yourself. Now, a lot of the time you're thinking about just getting a standard basic job, trying to make more than the average kind of minimum salary or minimum national minimum wage or hourly rate, and just trying to survive kind of thing, where the national minimum wage might be, £10, £9, whatever it is. But then we're thinking, yeah, I want to make £12 or £15 so I can make more money. But then you start to explore the world, what's out there, meet people, talk to people, listen to podcasts like Road to Empire podcast, for example, and you start to hear stories. You start to hear people who are making 1 million a month, people who are making, 10,000 a day, 10,000 a month, 20,000 a month, people that are making, 20 million a year, and or whatever it might be. So you start to realize, hang on a minute, how are these guys making, 10 grand in a day or 10 grand in a week, and I'm making about 15 grand in a year, or even less in a basic bog standard job, and I'm struggling to survive. I can hardly pay my bills, this kind of stuff, right? How is it? How are they doing it? And that's when you start to tread into this unknown space, and your journey of exploration will actually begin, and you'll start to realize, hang on a minute, bloody hell, I didn't know that all these things existed and all this kind of stuff. That's exactly what happened to me. My journey started over a decade ago, like I said, and especially in the last few years, it's really speeded up. So whereas I would sit down and, or ring my mate up and say, yeah, man, I want to, we'd have a normal chat, and I'd say, yeah, I want to make 100 grand in a year. That was my target. That was a big figure, 6 figures, 100 grand. But then I made, 100 grand in a month. I made 100 grand in a month. Yeah. Then the next month I made 100 grand again. The next month I made another $100,000. Yeah. Making £50,000 a month. My head was like all over the place. Even right now, when I say these kind of figures, I'm still a bit shocked, thinking that, hang on a minute, how was it that someone like me, who grew up in poverty, who didn't have so many opportunities in life, and actually could do something like that, right? Because I set up my own businesses. I went out there, I took the risk. I was an entrepreneur. I set up my own businesses. I went out there, took the risk, and I met the challenge. And I was able to, successfully make decent money. For example, on LinkedIn, we did 6 figures in 6 weeks. Actually, that's the title of one of the ebooks that we put together. So you guys can check it out. The link will be in the comments. 6 figures in 6 weeks on LinkedIn. You don't realize there's hundreds of thousands and millions of people on LinkedIn who are professionals, business owners, CEOs, managers, people who have control, power, access to wealth. Now, if you're someone who's got spirit, who wants to actually do something, start a business, create a startup, make money, you've got a little company going and you want to actually build build yourself, your personal development, enhance your mindset and well-being, and actually really achieve something, I'll definitely say get on LinkedIn, because that's basically, I've made hundreds of thousands just via LinkedIn, to be honest. So that is one platform that I would recommend that you should definitely be on. Have a profile on there and start connecting with people, start building that network, because that's your network, right? That's your profile, that's your network, and you can actually start selling your products and services to people, not in a spammy way, and build connections, right? And LinkedIn is a perfect place. I mean, I'll talk about that sometime on a different podcast, but for now, I would definitely recommend that you get on LinkedIn and make it happen. But that's the thing, you've got to realize that the world is your oyster, right? The world is yours, as we say, because there's massive opportunities. We live in what's called the fourth industrial revolution. We live in a technological age, right? You've got all these tools. Everybody's pretty much got a smartphone these days around the world. A lot of people have access to Wi-Fi, computers, laptops. So you could be sat in the UK talking to somebody in Australia, Dubai, USA, Germany, wherever around the world, doing business, right? Selling a service, doing a presentation, delivering consultancy, mentorship, doing a training program, whatever it might be. So you need to start to think differently. And one of the ways is just get away from those people around you that might be holding you back. That's exactly what I did. I had to cut out all the crap, cut out all the noise, all the nonsense, and move away. Once I did that, I isolated myself. I locked myself in a small tiny room, literally 2 meters by 2 meters it must have been. One sofa, one settee, one TV, one laptop. On the TV I'd put music on from time to time. I'd put a documentary on. I'd put a finance type program on. I'd be learning and listening and increasing my knowledge. And at the same time, I'd be working. I'd be ringing. I'd be making calls. I'd be sending cold emails. I'd be following up. I'd be sending messages on different platforms, direct messages, all that kind of stuff to generate revenue and create income. So that is something that I'm definitely advising you to do right now. But yes, so our podcast here is on YouTube. We're also on Anchor. We're on all the different kinds of platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts. So if you're listening to us on an audio podcast, make sure you leave a review. And if you're on YouTube, please do help us. I mean, it's a free podcast. We're not charging anything. So the least you could do is just drop a like, drop a comment. Let me know what you want me to talk about, what you're not sure about, any particular topic that's of interest. And just drop it in the comments and make sure you subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you later.